Dream the Coral Black Dream, huh? Anyway, hey everybody, what's up? This is Richard Kid, Richard Kid Reviews. Probably the highest, I think my, settings looks, for retro reviews. Let me just back up a bit. And here we go. So with that all being said, let's just get the ads out of the way. Yeah, sorry for that. I'm using the IMDb for this retro review of The Crow, 1994, mainly because, yeah, the new movie, well, remake in this case, is coming out, pretty soon, so card to that, and, guessing I need to basically switch to, the adless version, I guess, next time around. So, starting off the top, let's get this out of the way. This is based on the Top Cow comic of the late 80s, going into the 90s. I believe the director, Alex Perez, actually went on to have a decent career. I think he did Gods of Egypt and a few other things. Go to his IMDb down below for that. That's actually a weird, filmography he got there. The main reason why I'm talking about it, like I said, is of course the, Skarsgård, remake that's coming out next week. Go to the new trailer above. There is one, because I don't think there really has been marketing-wise for this movie. I know clips are finally trickling out, but, kind of last minute, as of, Thursday of this recording, so premiere weekend. Not much to say on that until probably this weekend. As for the original, however, this is one of those movies I actually grew up with. I did a rewatch as of last night to basically get a feel for what I remember of the movie itself. And it is actually pretty damn good. I know there is a layer of controversy that happened to Brandon Lee on the filming of the set, so I want to get that out of the gate now. Skip this time code here because there's a lot of lore to what happened the day of that set. What happened was basically a similar situation that happened to the Alec Baldwin production of Rust. Blanks and, yeah, getting shot on set, essentially. So, I won't go into details of what actually happened on the day. I thought, for the longest time, was most of the principal photography. I thought it was a multitude of shootouts that could have been the scene. Turns out, if you go to, I believe, Demi Presents live taping of their podcast, I think earlier this year, go to the cards there, kind of explained that they happened during the reshoots. I think they only had like 2 weeks of reshoots that got cut short due to the accident that happened to Brandon Lee. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning the Man of the Hour is because he is the son of Bruce Lee, who also tragically passed away of misforgotten accidents that also happened to one of his productions back in the 60s. So, yeah, it's kind of weird, kind of haunting, and not really much of a curse of the family because people in the family have moved on. I think Brennan's sister ended up being part of the family estate of Bruce Lee's legacy, and I believe Brennan's as well. So again, let me know in the comments down below if I was right about that. The guy that shot him, I believe, for the longest time I thought was Iggy Pop. Turns out it was a character actor that looked enough like Iggy Pop because I guess I couldn't get him in the cast. And there was a lot of other stuff they couldn't get in time for this video. For this movie, like a lot of mentions to the actual Top Cow comic itself, because I guess this stuff comes in threes. Long story short, the creator of the comic was writing it mainly as a way of him processing his grief of his late fiancée at the time. And, unironically, 10 years later was the same case here with Brennan and his fiancée as well. She got credited. She's still alive to this day, just letting you guys know. I could be wrong, let me know in the comments, as usual, but that's kind of where it is. So, with all of that tragedy out of the way, a lot has changed in 30 years, mainly the plot of this movie. Starting off, it's basically knockoff Detroit, basically having a devil's night. I am from New York, could have been an Eastern thing. James Agenice was very much trying to make that a local thing there. They were filming live in Detroit when they were talking about this movie. And I don't know, probably was a thing, I don't know. There is a lot of miniature work to a very unrealistic, like, dark city kind of cityscape and stuff like that. The cast is insane, and that's why I actually brought the IMDb here, because this is a very important movie for me personally as well. Because there is a Ghostbuster in the cast as well. I believe Ernie Hudson, yes. Yes, it was Ernie Hudson. So, that also being said, weird array of horror regulars, as well, like a Tony Todd, I think just before or after Candyman fame, so that's kind of how I feel on that. But yeah, a lot of horror regulars as well. The one guy I know for a fact who is going to absolutely suck at being the villain in the remake is knockoff Striker, last time mentioned here on the channel, was when I was doing my X-Men Origins Wolverine retro review, because Michael Wincock, if I got his name right, is absolutely the late 80s, early 90s OVA anime edgelord villain that you never thought would get adapted right on screen. And this is kind of where my fandom of the movie starts and my less knowledge of the Top Cow comic kind of begins. Because I think when people were researching into doing their retro reviews and retrospectives, they all basically came to the conclusion that it was basically the writer himself trying to like process the grief, and I was feeling more like notes instead of a comic strip at the time before getting picked up by Top Cow later on in the 80s. So I don't really know. Again, judge and research yourself if I'm on or off based on that detail as well. Ultimately, the plot of it is very simple. You get basically a revenge story with an urban fantasy kind of twisted whole thing. That's basically what was kind of presented there. For Brandon Lee himself, for this being his final performance, is a damn shame, because this is absolutely the biggest breakout I think he ever got for his career. Because I think he tried some kung fu films at home in I think his father's home country in China. He was a biracial kid, which means he was also stateside, and I think a second citizen also as well, or second generation. Again, I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments as well for as far as his I guess heritage here goes. Outside of that, the stunts are amazing. I think the only time they actually had safety precautions until that accident was basically, I think, all the high jumps Brandon was doing when he fully had the crow powers later on in the movie, mainly for safety reasons, crash mats and all the usual stuff you would see for movies producing back in that day. But the physicality of what he was doing for Eric Draven was all over the place. It's utilizing his family legacy of kung fu knowledge, kung fu and martial arts history, into such a supernatural character like this. And that's kind of where it begins and ends on the comparison with him and his father, because after that, he is absolutely owning the show, just building essentially the early prototypes of what would eventually be Heath Ledger's Joker later on in the Dark Knight trilogy in the 2000s, and a lot of other pseudo Jokers as time goes on. And ironically, I think Agent and his wife Chelsea came to the same conclusion. I think I might have as well in my rewatch. Is that it's kind of an Uno reverse strategy. In their way, they kind of, and I think also the Screen Junkies trailer, also their Honest trailer, tried making a lot of Batman parallels. But for me, it's kind of like what some wanted the Sin City movies to be, more miniature focused, less green screen, a little more old Hollywood kind of like aspects going into the 2000s. I'm thinking that same vibe too, because I usually used to watch this when it was on, I think when Robert Rodriguez' El Rey Network was still around. I don't know if it still is. Let me know in the comments if that TV network is still on your cable provider. Let me know if anything else. Having said that, there is another legacy of insanity that comes with this movie. A lot of sequels and no parallels or ties to Brandon Lee. So this is going to be the only movie in the franchise I'm going to talk about, because the sequels themselves are kind of a lore and retro review series of their own making. Basically, they try to build off the lore and have multiple different versions of the guy be the new guy, essentially. But they all had different lore, different backstory, how they got resurrected and stuff like that, which is very not interesting after Eric, and you could definitely tell as time goes on. I will say, if you really want to deep into the lore of the actual franchise outside of the comics, I do recommend maybe the Mark Dacascos television series that I think was the closest to being Eric as well. Again, I could be wrong also as well. As for the rest of the cast, it's pretty much a who's who of character actors of the time. Also, the soundtrack is very mid to late 90s grunge, new wave artists as time goes on, and I think almost all the bands that were featured on the soundtrack were people just before they got big later on in the decade. I'm not even kidding. So yeah, check the soundtrack yourself if it's on Spotify or whatever digitally or physically if you can. Overall conclusion, I didn't really talk much about the plot and stuff. It's a very personal story when it comes to the writer, when he was trying to like process the grief of that, and it does translate sort of well as far as adaptation goes. Translating that kind of grief does work well on screen. I don't really see how it is comic-wise, because I think there's like a comic-exclusive character that was also another horror icon. The name escapes me, my apologies. Please go to Demi presents his full video on that. Yeah, they basically got cut for time mainly because I think their director wanted to focus more on just Eric and him just like processing life after death kind of stuff like that, and it kind of helped out for his benefit. Would have been cool if he showed, but it was I think it was Hills Have Eyes regular for that cast coming in to be another horror icon essentially for this movie. And without it's probably it's like the James Cameron situation of like what deleted scene will give you $1 billion and what deleted scene is going to keep you I don't know, the studio afloat. For the studios are going to be very different when we get to the remake later this weekend. Lionsgate is producing and I think creating that remake. Back in the 90s, however, for the original movie, was Miramax. And Miramax has been through a legacy of their own problems. Harvey Weinstein, less said the better, but that's kind of where I want to leave it here. But after all that, it's awesome to finally do an actual retro review on an anniversary, because this is the movie's 30th anniversary as of this recording. It's going to be the same case also when I get to Terminator next week for when Terminator 0 drops for their 40th anniversary retro review. So should you see this before the remake? Yes, if you really want to be that disappointed by the Skarsgård performance, if anything else, on Bill's end. After that, watch it in your own time. You gotta be in a different kind of headspace kind of thing, unless you were of the time, you know, the soundtrack by heart and want to be there for the vibes of the music and there for the vibes of the world building that was kind of going to be later down the road. I think that same set also got used for Dark City, and I think most of Dark City's set also got used later in the 90s for, I think, the first Matrix. Yeah, that backdrop in Michigan, I think it was Michigan or North Carolina. I forgot the filming location. Again, wiki for this movie down below as well for filming locations and other tidbits I might have missed. So with that all being said, what did you think of this retro review? No scores because this is a retro review. I will do an official score for when I see the remake later this weekend. And with that all being said, end cards coming up to probably the closest thing to black I will probably do it. Can you tell I wasn't a goth kid in high school? Yeah, first hand over here to my Critical Role short for episode 104. I'm filming for 105 drops later tonight, so be prepared if y'all are watching the live blogs as of this recording. Other hand here to my previous videos as well, and yeah, not the real Nerve Air Draven gear here, close enough, I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to build a whole lore. Quick preview for this week's new movie review is going to definitely be... We're going to go back to figure forms for this one. You'll know soon. So until then, sub the channel here to be notified when that video drops. And until next time, I'm Richard Gav Reviews saying, yeah, good luck, Skarsgård. You're going to need it after this review.